International Justice, also referred to as the Day of International Criminal Justice or International Justice Day, is celebrated throughout the world on July 17th as part of an effort to recognize the emerging system of international criminal justice. July 17th was chosen because it is the anniversary of the adoption of the Rome Statute, the treaty that created the International Criminal Court. On the 1st of June 2010, at the review conference of the Rome Statute held in Kampala, Uganda, the Assembly of State Parties decided to celebrate the 17th of July as the Day of International Criminal Justice. Each year, organizations around the world use this day to host events to promote international criminal justice, and for the Ministry of Justice here at home, it was no exception. The Ministry of Justice has as its belief that each and every interconnected agency, organization, and process holds invaluable responsibilities in furthering the overall progress of St. Martin and its people. That is why International Justice Day is celebrated this year under the theme Ensuring a Just, Equal, and Fair Society. The Department of Communications spoke to various leaders within the justice chain to get some insight into their department's core task and responsibilities and how it contributes to ensuring a just, equal, and fair society. We begin with the Department of Judicial Affairs, which is responsible for a number of tasks including the formulation of policy, execution and review of policy as it regards to the internal ministerial environment, inspection of the quality of law enforcement and judicial complaints, preparation and implementation of laws governing the rights of citizens within society and legal procedures. The department is headed by Mr. Vijay Usia.
My department is in core business policy department. We assist the minister in executing his vision, his targets for his term or for the year, and most of the time we make or adjust the policy according to his visions. And we also give legal advice and other kind of advice to all the executive branches of the ministry, being the police. We have also the customs within our department, the FYU, the Financial Intelligence Unit, and the prison is part of it, and of course the police, if I haven't mentioned it already.
Who does the Department of Judicial Affairs report to?
Formally, according to the national ordinance, the organizational ordinance of the government of St. Martin, I'm responsible accountable to the Secretary General. And we have a close interaction together.
Looking at policy formation as a part of your responsibility, your core responsibility for judicial affairs, is it the sole responsibility of the judiciary system, or is it something that's established in discussion with Parliament?
No, it's by law, it's the responsibility of the department. We are not directly accountable or responsible to the Parliament. That's the minister. Minister has to explain to the Parliament if asked, pertaining to his policy, etc. Once again, by law, by the national ordinance, we have certain tasks. And it's mentioned and more elaborated in the decree, organizational decree, that we have to develop and adjust and implement policy pertaining to all those executive branches we have just mentioned, and also have to develop legislation, because at the end policy will be written into the laws. So that's our business. We also have a kind of monitoring a task. We have to quality-wise monitor the police, the prison, and the other branches. If we signal a kind of trend, well, we can advise the minister how to cope with it, how to take certain measures. And it can be that we have to adjust the law or make new laws.
How often does that happen?
Frequently, because it's an ongoing process. Of course, all the executive organizations are still trying to find their way, their modus operandus, the way how to work. Two of the branches, the police and the prison, still have to execute their, what they call plan of approach, plan van aanpak. And we assist them with those activities.
How often does that happen where perhaps the law has to be adjusted or amended?
Yeah, we're in a process of having and first reviewing all the laws that we have inherited from the period of the Netherlands Antilles. And most of those laws are outdated. And so we have an approach on the basis of the priorities of the minister to adjust those laws. And it's a continuing process. We have a lot of work working on it. And I have to tell you, with scarce capacity.
It all begins with judicial affairs, for example, like the inheriting of all those laws, the process of going through all the laws, amending if any needs to be amended, implementing those that needs to be implemented. It all begins with judicial affairs?
Yeah, you can say that for the Ministry of Justice. I can give you an example. We just had the new penal code, criminal code, in place. As of June 1st, we have a new penal code for St. Martin. In most, or not all, of the national ordinances, there's a reference to the penal code. In order to have this new code in place, in effect, we had to adjust at least 180 national ordinances.
The Office of the Solicitor General of St. Martin is another link in the justice chain, and the Department of Communications spoke to Mr. Taco Steen, who currently serves in that position and as Acting Attorney General. He gave some insight into his function and how the Office of the Solicitor General plays its role to ensure a just, equal, and fair society.
Solicitor General is one of the chains in the justice chain. I'm responsible for the cases that are dealt with by the Court of Appeal, the Common Court as it's called. And that means that if a case has been dealt with by the prosecutor in the first instance and the judge has given a verdict, either the prosecutor or the suspect can then appeal the case, and then the case will be dealt with by the High Court, and I will be the prosecuting agency for the High Court. So we will then retry the case, bring all the evidence again in front of the court, and a decision will follow. Sometimes the same decision, sometimes a little different, and sometimes we lose. Well, you win some, you lose some in this game. That's the way it is. And what we try to do is to get into a situation that justice is meted out in a fair and equal way, so that people in the street know that they are being protected, and people in the street with bad intentions know that something will happen to them if they carry out those intentions. What we call it ourselves the second tier. That means you have the court in first instance, which has a judge that deals with the case in the first instance, as it is when the case is discovered and the police does the investigation and they bring the file they create to the prosecutor's office, then the prosecutor decides to prosecute that case in front of the judge in the first instance. And after that, if that verdict is appealed, then I come into play. So then I get the whole file, look at it again, and we see if anything else needs to be investigated. If not, we will bring the case forward to the High Court. And so we're the second step in the procedure. Not all cases go there, thank God for that, otherwise my office needs to be a lot bigger. But those cases we do are usually the more serious cases.
When dealing with your cases, explain some of the unique scenarios that you probably have faced, especially since now that we've become a country.
Before that, before we became a country, before 10-10-10, there already was an office of the Attorney General, but that was the General Office of the Netherlands Antilles, and the Attorney General then was only seated in Curaçao. When we need to deal with appeal cases in those days, the Solicitor General of Curaçao traveled to St. Martin and prepared the file and did the case and traveled back to Curaçao. So he was here only for the court case, and that's about it. We decided that that was not a good idea, because if you want to deal with cases in a proper fashion, you need to know the society you're working in. So that was, for the country St. Martin, a reason to have its own office of the Attorney General on St. Martin. In that office, not only cases are being dealt with, but also policy making is handled. That means that if new insights need to be incorporated in legislation, in the policies of the ministry, we advise the minister on those. So in that respect, we serve a larger function than only prosecuting cases.
The Immigration and Border Protection Service is an agency within the Ministry of Justice of St. Martin. The IBP is one of the most vital agencies within government as it pertains to national security. The organization is dedicated to securing the borders of St. Martin through effective immigration control, combating illegal immigration, facilitating the travel of bona fide visitors, and detecting immigration-related crimes. In addition to controlling the movement of people in and out of St. Martin, the IBP also provides services to citizens, including the issuance of residence permits and extensions of stay. The Department of Communications spoke to Head of Facilities Management for Immigration and Border Protection Service, Ms. Gina Bruni.
As it pertains to the structure of the organization has a director, Mr. Udo Aron. Mr. Udo Aron has a staff who assists him with the implementation of policies. You have Mr. Erling Hoover, who's concentrated on the border management. You also have Mr. August Emmanuel, who is the acting director and the business controller. He also is the head of the human smuggling division. And we recently lost some staff members, but within the immigration division, we have admittance and residency that's head by Robert Barbet. They are responsible for short and long-term stay, that department. Then you have the border protection, which is the airport and all the seaports. That division, the head, Mr. Juliet, he retired this year, but we have the coordinator, a very powerful woman, Angel Viziola. And under her, you have team leaders who manage the different divisions. You have Ingrid Solomon at the Port of St. Martin. You have Sharon Sherwood James at Simpson Bay. And then you have the mobile control. That is the division who is actively patrolling within the border to ensure that the persons who are here are legally supposed to be here, and if not, they are detained and expelled. The head of that division is the project leader, Mr. Albert Thomas, and his team leader, Mr. Leroy Bobo Brooks. So together, it all forms part of Immigration Border Protection Service. So you have the admittance side, you have the protection side, and you have the control side. And then we also have the policy division, which is responsible for ensuring that persons who submit appeals, they put in a request for a residence permit and it was denied, and they appeal. The policy department, which was previously headed by Gwen Mussel, who left us, they are responsible for ensuring that those appeals are dealt with.
The Joint Court of Justice of Aruba, Curacao, St. Martin, and of Bonaire, St. Eustatius, and Saba serves the 3 Caribbean countries of the Kingdom of the Netherlands, Aruba, Curacao, and St. Martin, and the 3 special municipalities of the Netherlands, Bonaire, St. Eustatius, and Saba. The court primarily hears disputes in first instance and on appeal of these 6 islands, and is on the same level as similar courts in the Netherlands. The Department of Communications spoke to Judge Moritz de Kort, who explained how the Joint Court of Justice ensures a just, equal, and fair society.
Well, as a judge, I have to render decisions, legal decisions, that would determine any dispute, be it a civil dispute about like labor issues or rent issues, or it could be a dispute where the public prosecutor has towards a defendant. So in any case, you are deciding upon what is right and wrong, and in that way try to administer justice as fairly as possible.
Let's look at the structure of our judicial system.
Yes.
Explain it to us at the most basic level.
Okay.
Where do you start?
We would have to go back to our constitution, where you have the 3 powers, being the executive power, the government, the legislative power, our parliament, and the judiciary. The judiciary, insofar for St. Martin is concerned, is in hands of what we call the Common Court of Justice. So St. Martin shares its judiciary together with Aruba, Curacao, and the Basse Islands, Bonaire, St. Eustatius, and Saba. So the judiciary is in hand of this independent organization called the Common Court of Justice, and where judges are appointed for life by means of a royal decree in order to make sure that they are independent and that they cannot be politically, that they are not, that their appointment is not politically dependent. And it is through the interdependency of these powers that me as a judge can do my job. I am, or as an organization, I am dependent of the government to make sure that they pay the Common Court of Justice so that I could be paid. On the other hand, I have to trust that the government, through, for example, the police, prison, its bailiffs, will execute my decisions. I cannot execute decisions, I can only give them. So, and for example, in the role, if you consider the role of Parliament, I am dependent that Parliament will give or adapt proper rules that govern any situation. So, in order to do my job well, and as you say, administer justice for an equal and a fair, to contribute to a fair and equal society, I am dependent of these 2 other powers in order to do my job properly.
Take us through a day in life of a judge here in St. Martin. Mm-hmm. What are those tasks?
Okay, it depends what kind of cases you do. You could be either doing civil cases or criminal cases or administrative cases. Those are the three main branches we are dealing with. Right now I deal mostly with criminal cases. So we will start the day where the files have been presented to me. I will go through them and I will then have a hearing where I have to decide whether the pretrial detention of a defendant would have to be prolonged. I will see the policeman bring in the defendants. I will see the lawyers go through the files and speak to their clients. And then I will have them in chambers, and we will go through the merits of the case, whether it would justify, as requested by the public prosecutor, to have the detention, the pretrial detention, prolonged. You know, what I probably just mentioned, the whole system is based on trust. I have to trust that the executive, the government, and parliament, the legislative power, that there are rules in place, adapted, updated, based on which I could render a decision. I have to trust on lawyers that are knowledgeable, that they know the rules, and they will bring forward the relevant facts and circumstances on which a judgment could be rendered. I have to trust on knowledgeable colleagues and here at the courthouse that will assist me when I'm doing my work. I have to trust on the police, in the public prosecutor, in the prison system, that when a decision is rendered, that it will be executed properly. So it's all based on trust. So in order to go forward, we have to make sure to develop this sense of trust even more, to do it attentively, and we can do it by understanding our system even better, by providing information even better, but also to guard this concept of trust and our democratic system fiercely. But we can only do that when we understand the powers and the limitations thereof of the people, institutions, and organizations of this country.
We close off our International Justice Day 2015 special with our colleagues in the Customs Department, who, as we have learned in our conversation with Supervising Customs Officer First Class Mr. Franklin Bernardina, is responsible for collecting and safeguarding import duties and for monitoring and controlling the flow of goods, including animals, flora and fauna, transports, personal effects, and hazardous items in and out of St. Martin. Customs St. Martin is also a law enforcement agency under the responsibility of the Minister of Justice. Customs St. Martin differs from most other countries in the region in that it is mainly a law enforcement agency and not primarily an import duty collecting organization. The only tax levied by Customs St. Martin is tax and excise on unleaded gasoline.
Customs Department is the government agency responsible for the transit and passing of goods at the borders. That means anything coming into St. Martin or leaving St. Martin, customs officers has the authority to do something about it. That's to make it simple. But we are a law enforcement organization that falls under the Ministry of Justice. Our main task is law enforcement. Customs differ a little bit from other countries in the region because we don't have import duties on St. Martin. So then you would ask, why does customs exist?
Considering the fact, Mr. Bernardino, that St. Martin is a duty-free environment, you would question if a customs department is actually needed, but in fact, it is. Explain that to us a little bit.
Yes. The only tax levied on St. Martin is tax on unleaded gasoline. So the gasoline you would put in your vehicle, that is the only tax that customs deal with, the import tax. Customs in St. Martin is mainly a law enforcement organization. That means at the border, we are law enforcement officers. You can compare it, for example, to a police officer. A police officer enforces the law inland. We do the same thing, but at the borders.
Where do the customs officers perform their duties?
Okay, mainly we are a border organizations. That means our main task are performed at the border. A border is any place where people or goods can either enter or leave St. Martin. You have the airport, you have the harbor, you have the marinas, and also you have the post office. People don't see the post office as a border, but post office is where people would send parcels, and parcels would come in as well. You also have the others, DHL and FedEx, etc.
We spoke about the Regional International Corporation,
Right.
but here locally at home, what departments do you work with, organizations?
Okay, we like to believe that the Coast Guard is our closest partner, but we also work with the police department a lot. We work also with the department, the health department, that's concerning the medication coming into the island. We also work with prison, for example, if they need assistance from us. We have a narcotics detecting dog, and sometimes they do call upon us for assistance. So those are the ministries that we work with more often on St. Martin. Yes.
As you know, Justice Week taking place next week.
Right.
International Justice Day
Right.
being observed. And the theme this year at home is pretty much ensuring a just, equal, and fair society.
Right.
As we close off our interview, I'd like to get your take on how do you feel the Customs Department plays a role in ensuring a just, equal, and fair society?
Right. I believe once the department focus on integrity, the head of the department like to focus on integrity, make sure that that is untouchable. Once your department is focused on that, I believe you cover all three parts. We like to do our job also as efficiently and effectively as possible, making sure that we treat everybody equally. That means the cry that we hear sometimes that we discriminate on color, that is not right. Because the same flight that may be carrying dark-skinned people also have white-skinned people, and we do control everything. So that is, we treat everybody equally. We focus on that, we make sure that we don't hear those cries. So I think we have been doing a good job concerning that.
International Justice Day, observed annually on the 17th of July, is a day that unites all those who wish to support justice, promote victims' rights, and help prevent crimes that threaten the peace, security, and well-being of the people of St. Martin and around the world. The Department of Communication wishes all the proud men and women who work diligently within the Ministry of Justice a happy and safe International Justice Day. And we thank you for your daily efforts ensuring that we have a just, equal, and fair society. On behalf of the government of St. Martin and all of us here at the Department of Communication, I'm Cedric Peterson. Thanks for watching.